Hey, and welcome to another video. This video, we're gonna be carrying on from where we left off in the last one with the pistons widget, and more specifically the pistons purchase widget. With that, let's get started. So before we get started with that, since we are going to be testing the code in this video, we're gonna head over to pistons widget, and then we're gonna add a text block. And then this text block, we are going to anchor it. Actually, no, not on the canvas. We need to put this on the overlay. And then we are going to set this to the center. Actually, no, not that center, the center. We're going to use this to tell the car's torque to see if the code actually works. So we're going to go here by the content, create a binding, and then we're just gonna drag in the SBPG game, drag off, get BPS garage cars, drag off from there, get a reference, drag in the vehicle ID, drag off from the kit, we're gonna break, and then we're gonna expand this, and then we're gonna look for the base torque. We're gonna drag off from here, gonna hit multiply, and then we're gonna add the second pin. And then we're going to multiply this by the pistons and the crankshaft. And then we're going to take this and then drop this into the return value and then just hide unconnected. And then that's going to be it. This is how we're going to test to make sure that the code does in fact work. Compile. And then we're just going to run the code to see if it does in fact show the car's current torque. And performance, pistons. And we can see there the car's torque is being displayed. And then we're gonna continue on with the pop-up. Gonna call it graph. And then in here we need to create another function. So create a new function, and then this one is going to be check vehicle tier. And then in the variables, we're gonna create a new variable. And then this one we're gonna call this the multiplier. And then this is gonna be of type float. So we're gonna use this to determine the amount that we need to multiply the cost by, because if we don't do this, then we're going to need to run two pieces of code, one for tier 1 cars and one for tier 2 cars. But by doing this, we then have a multiply value that we set at the beginning, and then from there we only need to run one piece of code, because then the one piece of the code that has to change depending on the tier of the car will then be set before anything else has to happen. So with that now done, we are going to drag in the SBPGI game. So from the SBPGI game, drag off, and then we're going to look for the PDA upgrade costs. And then we're going to drag off and then get tier, and we're going to get tier 1, and then drag off of there, and then get tier 2 as well. And then just drag this out the way. And then we're going to, from the SBPGI game, drag off and then get BPS garage cars, drag off and then get a reference. And then we're going to get the vehicle ID from the get, drag off and then break, and then expand that. And then we are going to then go for the tier. So we're going to drag off from tier 1, add a branch. And then we're also going to drag off from tier 2, and then add a branch. Select the break, hide unconnected, and then connect the execution pins, connect the from the first branch to the second branch, and then we are going to drag in the multiplier. So hold Alt, drag it in, and then set it. So then if it's a tier 1 car, we're going to take from tier 1, set the multiplier. And then if it's not a tier 1 but a tier 2 car, we're going to take the multiplier, Control D, connect that to the true, and then from tier 2, we're going to connect that to the multiplier. And then that is how we are going to then change the cost of the component based on the tier of the car. Compile, that's the event graph, take the check vehicle tier, drag it in, connect it after the set piston stage. The next function we're going to add is the check cost, check comp cost. And then in here, we are going to drag in the piston stage. So hold Control, drag it in, and then drag off and then equals. So if the stage is equal to 1, then we'll have a branch. So then we're going to drag in the SBPGI game, drag off, get the PDA upgrade costs, and then we are going to drag in the multiplier, hold control, drag it in, and then we're going to drag off and then get S1 pistons, and then drag off from the S1 piston, and then multiply, and then connect the multiplier to the bottom, and then we actually need to go back to the designer. So we have the cost text. So we have the cost text, hold control, drag it in, and then drag off, and then set text, text. And then from the multiplier, connect that to the in text, and then connect the execution pin. And then we're going to do the same thing. So drag over the entire code, Control D, and then from the piston stage, the equals, Control D as well, and connect that to the second equals, and then we set that to true. And then from the branch, drag off the false, and then connect the second equals to the second branch, and then from the true on the second branch, connect that to the set text for the second part, and then we're going to switch out the pistons as 1, and then from the upgrade cost, drag off and then get as 2 pistons, and then connect that to the top of the multiply. And then we're going to do this once more for the stage 3, Control D, and then from the branch, false, drag off, add another branch, and the equals, Control D, connect that to the piston stage, change that to 3, connect the equals to the branch, and then from the true, connect that to the set text, remove the pistons as 2, drag off, and then get pistons as 3, and then connect that to the multiply, and then that will be it. Compile, save, back to the event graph, take the check comp cost, drag that in after the check vehicle tier, and then connect. And then after that, we're going to do the buttons. Start with the no, select the no, one click, then from the no, drag off, and then remove from parent. Then from there, drag off and then create widget. And then the widget we're creating is the pistons widget. And then from the turn value, drag off and then add to viewport. And then we'll select the yes, unclick. And then for the yes, we're going to create another function. And then this one is going to be purchase comp. So similar to the check, I'm going to go and drag this. And then we're going to take these first few parts because it is relatively the same. I'm going to Control C, head over to the purchase, Control V, and then we're just going to space them out a bit. And then from the as BPGI game, drag off and then get money. And then from the get money, we're going to drag off and then look for greater than. And then we're going to connect from the multiply to the greater than. And then from there, drag off and then add a branch. Connect that to the branch, the execution pin. And then if it's true, we're going to take from the as BPGI game along with the money, Control D. And then from the money, drag off and then subtract. We're going to take from the multiply, connect that to the bottom pin, and then from the as BPGI game, drag off and then set money. From the subtract, connect it to the set, connect the execution pin to the true, and then drag off and then create save game object. Save game we're looking for is the BP save game. From the return, drag off and then promote variable, and then this is going to be BP save game. I'm going to drag off and then set money, and then from the set money, connect that to the other set money, create a couple of redirect nodes, and then we're going to save game to slot. Slot is the money slot, and then the BP save game is the save game object, and then we're going to drag in the as BPGI game, drag off and then get BPS garage cars, drag off and then get a reference, connect the vehicle ID to the bottom pin, drag off and then set members. And then the member we're going to be setting is the piston. And this one we said is going to be 1.1 for stage 1. And then we're going to take the SBPGI game and the BPS large cars, Control D, and then we're going to drag off and then get, and then from the get, drag off, and then break, and then take the vehicle ID, connect that to the second get, expand the break, and then what we're looking for is the BPS pistons, drag off, and then we're going to look for set members in BPS pistons, take the first break, and then hide unconnected. Now we're looking for here is the stage 1, set it to true, connect the execution pin, and then after the set members, drag off and then create save game object. Save game is the BP save game. Drag in the BP save game variable, drop it on the return value. From there, drag off and then set BPS garage cars, and then we're gonna copy from here as the BPIJ game and the BPS garage cars. Control D, connect that to the set, connect the execution pin, drag off and then save game to slot. The save game object is the BP save game, and then the slot name is the owned cars. And then after we're done with that, we're going to drag off and then remove from parent, drag off from there, and then we're going to create widget. The widget we're creating is the pistons widget, and then we're going to add this to the viewport. So after we have checked the stage of the upgrade component, we're then going to check if the player has enough money to purchase said upgrade component. Then if they do, we subtract the money, save the money, and then set the component to its required value. We then set that we have purchased said component. We save that value, and then we close the widget and then go back to the main components widget. And then we're gonna do the same for the other two stages. So just drag over the entire code, all except for the early parts, which is the SBPJ game, and then the PDA upgrade cost, the pistons, and the multiply. Drag that as well. And then we're gonna Control D, and then just move this to where it needs to be, and then just connect all the missing noodles. From the true, connect that to the branch, and just position this properly. And then we're just gonna go through and make sure that everything is connected as it should be. So from the multiply, connect that to the subtract, and then just go through, make sure the set members for stage 2 it's 1.2, and then the set members again on stage 1 but stage 2, set it to true, and then connect after the save game to slot to the remove from parent. And then the last one, we're gonna Control B, and then just move this into position, connect all missing noodles, change the pistons value to 1.3, change the set members to stage 3 to true, and then connect the save game object to the remove from parent. And then that is it for the pistons. Just verify everything, stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Stage 3, 2, and 1. Make sure they're all connected. And then with that, that should be it. Now compile, save, add to the event graph, drag in the purchase component to the yes, And then that should be everything. Just gonna go and verify to make sure that the code is right. I'm gonna go to content, blueprints, and then I'm gonna go look for the PDA upgrade costs. So for the pistons, oh, I didn't set them here, I set them in the PDA. So it's 6, so it's 5, 10, and 15. And then the car I have is a tier 2 car, so it's 2.5. So then the results that I would be looking for is for the first stage, it should be 12.5. For the second one, it should be 25. And for the last one, it should be 37.5. So those are the values that I should be looking for if the code works properly. So let's just test it out to see if it does work. So we go to the performance, distance, we have the value, we click on stage 1. So then we have it 12.5. We say no. Stage 2, 25. We say no again. Stage 3, 37.5. Then we say no again. So then we want to purchase the stage 1 component. Say yes. And then the car's torque has gone up to 1722. Stage 1 is now stated as installed. And then we're going to test it out to see if it works. Click on factory. It heads back to 1566. Factory is stated as installed. Then we're going to hit stage 1 again. And then it changes. Stage 1 is now installed. And that is the code. So we have verified that it does work. You only need to purchase a part once, and then you can switch back and forth between the purchase stage and the factory. So the code works. We have verified it. And then that is where I'm going to end off this video. In the next video, we are going to duplicate the pistons widget and then make all the necessary changes so that it suits every single other component, the crank, the boost, the brakes, the tires, and the transmission. But now we know that the code does in fact work. It does translate between tiers. So with that, that brings us to the end of this video, and until the next one.